welcome to this week's or today's, whatever this is, today's edition of Stay Out of the Kitchen. It's first before Mike's losing it already because of what just happened. So first, for those that don't know, the reason why it's Stay Out of the Kitchen, because my last name is Heater, and it's obviously, if you can't handle the heat, stay out of the kitchen. And Mike is Mike Fouts, no relation to Dan Fouts. So here's what just happened. I am easily the dumbest person there is. We just did about 35 minutes of this, and I didn't fucking record it.
True story.
So we're doing this again. What we were talking, there's no way it's going to be the same. We went on a rant about, this is going to be, I know it's going to be abbreviated because I never end up talking as much that the topic today is Urban Meyer. So we're going to have to try to simulate as closely as we can what we talked about. So Mike and I had a couple of topics that we wanted to discuss today. And when this Urban Meyer news came out, we decided we wanted to talk about Urban Meyer. And then I decided I want to go a little bit deeper. And I did some work, did some research. We both did on the shittiest coaches that have ever coached, because someone had said this week that they think it's the shortest tenure, it's the worst tenure in the NFL. So before we talk about some of the classic awful coaches that have graced the sidelines over the past many, many years, or at least in our lifetime of watching the NFL, I'll start with this with Urban Meyer. Do you think, we know he's not going to coach in the NFL anymore. Do you think he has a chance of potentially coaching in college or somewhere else?
No, I do not. I think that this is kind of I think he's toxic for Florida, the Ohio State experience, and now Jacksonville's been a complete shit show. So I think by the time he becomes untoxic, he's too old and he's out of it too long. So I think this is probably it for Urban. And I think most people like me just want him to go away.
So we all know, I mean, I don't think any of us are surprised that this didn't work. I don't think any of us, well, Ohio State fans probably expect this to work. I don't think any of us are surprised I think we're surprised that this took, okay, you want to show, so I'm going to interrupt. So Mike's, go ahead.
Yeah, holding that, see, I'm holding that right there. That's how you hold that drink, like that.
So we got a story about that I wanted to tell the last time, and I'm an idiot. We've proven that we've proven that is confirmed without hitting record. But Mike was showing off the way to drink. We saw a guy when we were in Phoenix, and I wanted Mike to show everybody how he was drinking out of a can, and I realized that he's on Zoom, I'm not. So while I was talking and explaining it, he's drinking it, and you couldn't see it. So I couldn't show any of it. So we're going to get to that at another time. We want to talk about Urban Meyer. So I don't think any of us thought that this was going to happen this quickly. And we know he's a smug asshole because he was like that when they interviewed him. He was like that when he was on TV. But the part that got me, and I know you saw this too, is when he said that he had better coaches in Bowling Green. You guys are fucking terrible. That, to me, if that happened, that's unbelievable.
Well, there's some epic moments in such a short tenure, right? In whatever it is, week 16 or 17 here. So he has no idea who's playing in the game, right? He has a rookie defensive back, and he was asked how the kid was doing and how many snaps he got. He indicated a few. Kid hasn't played. He had no idea. He kicked the kicker, apparently, right? That's another disaster. He kicked Lambeau. So anyway, that led to, I would like to propose, after doing some reading, maybe honorable mention of some of the worst coaches ever.
Okay, so the two guys, when we talked about this, the two guys that jumped out to me that I think now I'm going to say pound for pound. And when I say that, I mean guys that didn't coach like Urban did. Like Urban's going to go down as one of the worst ever, but there's guys that had a short tenure that really sucked. And there's guys that in this case sucked, got fired, and then got rehired and sucked worse. And those two guys for me are Rich Kotite and Hugh Jackson. To me, the two worst coaches ever ever in the NFL?
Well, so Kotite for me is number one. He's the worst ever. And here's the great thing about Hugh Jackson. He went 1-31. He survived 2 seasons in Cleveland, including an 0-16 season. He survived twice as long as Urban Meyer did with a 1-31 record. That's how bad Urban's tenure is.
Well, I think Jackson wasn't a dick. I mean, when you watch that Hard Knocks show, he was a moron, and I don't think he ever should have been a head coach at all. But he was obviously, they could, and plus the Browns were a freaking disaster at that point. But my favorite Hugh Jackson line is after they went 0-16, he said, there is no way we're going to go 0-16 again. And, oh, no, I'm sorry. They went 1-15 the first year. He said, we are not going to go 1-15 again. He was correct. They then went 0-16, and that was it. So he was right. They did not go 1-15. I tell you that I'm telling you, this is another thing about Hugh Jackson. There is no question that you and I could have coached that team, and somehow in 2 years, based on the blind squirrel theory, we could have won one game. There's no way. I think anyone, I think a grade school kid could have coached a team and still won one game in 2 years.
I feel like I could have put the headset on and let Todd Haley run the team for the most part and won more games, to be honest. He had Todd Haley and Greg Williams.
Yeah.
Williams, despite being kicked out of the NFL because he was a headhunter, still, though, he knew what he was doing. He knew more than Hugh Jackson did. So I feel like I could have won at least 2 games.
Yeah, that's what. And Rich Kotite. So Kotite coached the Eagles. They were 7-2, and I think it was 90. I think it was like 96 or maybe it was 93, 94 when he coached the Eagles. Now he took over for Buddy Ryan. They fired Buddy Ryan and hired Kotite. He was 7-2 and then lost the last 7 games and then was fired the next year. Now he got hired by the Jets. He won, I think, 4 total games. Do I have the numbers there on Kotite? I'm not sure if I have the numbers on Kotite. But what I was telling you before is that what's interesting about those two, that they're linked. Both guys were hired by owners that were very close to death. One of them, Al Davis, actually died in Hugh Jackson's 1 year, 4 games in, and Leon Hess was on his deathbed. So both guys were they were buddies. Leon Hess was buddies with Kotite. He was a Jersey or New York guy, and they hired him. But they're just horrific. That's the worst ever.
So let me. I put together a small list of terrible. So I'll throw a couple at you. Lou Holtz with the Jets in '76. He went 3-10. He didn't last an entire season. He's like Urban, but I think if I remember correctly, he quit and left. But his crowning achievement for that year was he created a fight song for the Jets, and he had the team sing the fight song after those 3 wins.
Well, at least they only had to do it 3 times.
That mush mouth a fight song.
Oh my God.
God Almighty.
Because you wonder how. Well, again, it's another guy that had a philosophy and an attitude that worked in college, because he was able to do the rah-rah stuff and it worked in college. It did not work. The Vikings were gonna hire him. That's how I knew about the 3-10 season. The Vikings were gonna hire him and passed on him. They also passed on Pete Carroll before Carroll went to the Seahawks, but that's another story. But at least he was successful. Well, another guy. Well, he wasn't. I don't know, because that happened in '76. I'm not sure where he came from. I don't know where Holtz came from as far as before he was with the Jets. If he was an assistant he was an assistant with Weeb, I think, back in the '60s, right? Yeah.
He came from college, like a small D1 school. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, but he was a college guy that came up.
Now, as we were talking before, how about the Bobby Petrino story?
Oh man, that is one of my favorites. Actually, this guy freaking walked out and just left notes. That's all he did. He left a note. You know what? I'm so shitty and this team's so bad, I'm just walking out. I'm going to go you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Arkansas and find some college chick and put her on the back of my motorcycle. That's what I'm going to do. That's a better idea than coaching the Falcons.
And then I'm going to wreck it, and I'm going to get caught. Then I'm going to wreck it, and I'm going to get caught. And then I'm going to get hired again at Arkansas after that happens. He was 3-10 with the Falcons that season in 2007. I had forgotten that he was that bad in the NFL.
If you ever read the story is glorious, by the way. He was 3-10. The rumors were he was going to get fired. He met with the owner, Arthur Blank, who came out and said, "We had a really great meeting. I feel good about it. We're gonna finish the season. We're gonna try and finish strong." And in the meantime, he was down writing a note, leaving it on the board, basically walking out the door.
It was like in Major League when they were getting cut from training camp. They opened their locker and they had a red tag on there.
Good one, yes. Yep.
All right, now we waited till later the first time to talk about Cam Cameron, but I did not realize that he went 1-15 in 2007 with the Dolphins.
He was horrible, and I don't care because my beef with Cam Cameron is his parents named him Cameron Cameron. Who names your kid? Your last name is Cameron. Why would you name your kid Cameron Cameron? Ugh.
So here's what I want to tell you. I did not know that until you told me the last time when I didn't record this. My dad claims he was in the Navy with a guy whose name was Richard R. Dick.
Ah, come on, get out of here.
He claims his middle name was Richard. And they used to call him Triple Dick. Dick, Dick, Dick.
That's a good one. Yeah. That is a really good one.
I went to high school with a kid named Richard Pritchard.
Wow.
That's close.
That's really close.
He didn't go 1-15 with the Dolphins, Cameron. I never thought of that until you said that. I never thought of that his name was Cameron. All right,
let me keep going. Let me give you one here.
Yes, go ahead.
Marty Moron wig with the Lions. You remember that idiot, right?
Yes.
He was, and I want you to tell the Eagles story because that's a good one. But Morningweg was, he got fired after the Bears game in which the game went to overtime, coin flip, and he decides we're going to kick the ball. We're not going to take it in overtime where the first points win the game. We're going to kick the ball away. And the Bears, right down the field, kick a field goal, win.
Well, that's another one of those guys, like a few guys on this list, that belonged to be coordinators and did not belong to be head coaches.
Yes.
So when he was with the Eagles, he was their offensive coordinator, and he was a good guy. I had a chance to interview him. So the rule in training camp, you were not allowed, if the guy spoke under the tent, to the scramble of media, you were not allowed to, you weren't supposed to talk to, I don't think they gave a shit because it was Morningweg. But he was walking off and I did a one-on-one with him and he did it with me. He was great. You got more from the coordinator than you got from, it was Andy Reid at the time because those guys were so tight. But I got a chance to interview him in Eagles training camp when they were at Lehigh. But again, a guy that should not be a head coach.
So I'm going to divert a little bit here, since I feel like we already did this because we did and somebody didn't record it. But this reminds me of a story. We went to Phoenix to a NASCAR race and completely fucked up credentials. We didn't get them right. And so along the lines of breaking the rules, we talked our way all the way into the infield of Phoenix Raceway by, I don't know, 4 layers of security? Right? 4 or 5 layers of security into the media center, talked our way in to find out that we had to go all the way back out and drive 4 miles north to get our credentials. But the point is, act like you've been there before because you can get anywhere.
Well, you did most of the talking in that, and you are correct. There's a message to the youngsters. Act like you know what you're doing, act like you've been there, be nice, and you can get pretty much right in there. Yes.
Yep.
Walk
right in.
That was successful. That was a successful thing. Yes. Speaking of media credentials.
Back to the coaches.
All right. So let me see. Well, I want to highlight some of the really Romeo Crennel 2-14 with the Chiefs in 2012. Now he also sucked pretty much everywhere. That was right. He was a Belichick guy, right?
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so he's
He was-
another one that ranks in there of Belichick guys that did not work out. Right, and well, because he was with the Texans, but I did not know he was that bad with the Chiefs. 2 wins in one season, out.
terrible. He was terrible. First of all, the only one out of there that's been worth anything has been Vrabel so far.
Yes.
Right? And when Derrick Henry went down, he maybe he's not as good as what everybody thought. But I would like to point out Romeo Crennel is really big.
He is big. I'm another time. I'm explaining that little inside joke. He is big. That's funny, and I think I can do. That is funny because it's another major league reference too. It works in there. As I'm going through most of these, I realize I have a story for everything because I want to talk about the Ray Perkins story again. But you know what I missed the first time? The Kotite. All right, I forgot about this. So not only did Kotite go at 4-28 in 2 years with the Jets, but he passed on drafting Warren Sapp and instead took Kyle Brady in the first round. Warren Sapp, Hall of Famer, right? Did not take him. Yes, passed on Warren Sapp.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. He also likes prostitutes too, but he's a Hall of Famer.
Who, Kotite did or Sapp did? Yeah.
Hopped in a hotel for.
Oh, him and LT'd have something in common then.
It's a victimless crime, right?
Yes. So the other name I wanted to, so we were talking about Colts because you're a Colts fan, but not till they moved to Indy. The last Colts coach before moving from Baltimore was, I have no idea, Frank Kush. 0-8-1 in 82, but this was the reason why, or one of the reasons why Elway said, I'm playing baseball because of Kush. Fired him 0-8-1 in 82.
Yep. That I still have hard feelings about that because the complete trajectory of the franchise changes if you get John Elway. Instead, I had to suffer through 14 shit-ass seasons with them before they drafted Peyton Manning. So, that's great.
Listen, you had some legendary guys, Mike Pagel, Art Schlichter, right? Jeff George, who the Vikings picked up. Yeah, he was.
Mark Herman. He was there.
Oh, yeah. He's a legend.
Yeah.
All right. Rod Marinelli was the first guy to ever lose all 16 games, which I still think is impossible to do. Very, very hard to do. Very hard to lose 16 games. But he was 3-13, 7-9, and then 0-16 in his 3 years with Detroit. Which, by the way, thankfully is around. Otherwise, the Vikings would be Detroit. Like Detroit is hard. I mean, because I'm actually didn't talk about this first time. How is Wayne Fontes not listed amongst some of the worst ever? You know why? Because they made the playoffs with him, right? Yeah, right. They made the playoffs.
Right. Like one of two coaches to make the playoffs with them, right? Wasn't Caldwell the other one?
Caldwell was the other one. And that was poor Barry Sanders had Wayne Fontes all those years. Scott Mitchell was probably their best player during that time.
Yeah, good one. Yes, that's right.
So I wanted to bring up Lehman Bennett. Lehman Bennett was the one that wore the trucker hat when he coached the Falcons, was good. Coached the Bucks, forgot this. Lehman Bennett with the Buccaneers was 4-28 in 2 seasons, but he had Steve Young for 2 years, and that was the coach that Bo Jackson said, nope, gonna play baseball, not going to Tampa. Which also, you think about it, potentially changes things around too. If Bo Jackson's a Buccaneer, maybe they're better earlier than they were because they were better. Well, they had some good runs, but not with him.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Not with him. And that's right. Bo, that was in Bo's 30 for 30 on ESPN, right?
Yeah.
They talked about that, about how he went down there for a visit and came back and said, no dice, no chance am I going down to Tampa.
And Ray Perkins, speaking of Tampa, so Ray Perkins coached his team in the early 90s, and he was one of them listed along with guys like Gus Bradley and Steve Spagnuolo as far as guys that I just listed together that are like, well, Gus Bradley was one and done, I think, with Jacksonville, and Spagnuolo was terrible in 3 seasons when he was the head coach of the Rams. Another guy that belonged just being a coordinator.
Yeah, right. Spagnuolo, there's a whole group of those guys, right? Spagnuolo, we talked about Schwartz, right? He's another guy who's a good coordinator, but a lunatic as a coach. He wanted to fight Harbaugh at midfield after that game.
He is a dick, but he's a dick. Like that guy is a horse's ass. Well, he was, because he coached the Lions and he sucked with them. Yeah.
Terrible. Yep.
So I have a story about Ray Perkins. So we go to see Tampa play in '92, and he's coaching the Buccaneers. It's late. It's like December 1 or December 2, and it's in the papers the day before that they're going to have a protest. Now, I've never been. It's the old Tampa Stadium, so it was the one that was like one level. Like you walked in the bottom and you went all the way up. Like it was the old stadium. So it's like the old sombrero. Yes. So it's like 75 degrees. The parking lot is all grass. It's beautiful. And these fans are all fired up because Perkins, they want him out. So they're going to protest the first quarter. They're not going to go in. So I'm thinking, I don't give a shit how bad the team is. If I lived in Tampa, look at the games we're going to. It's no bad weather. It's nothing like that. So years later, about 4 years ago, we go to Alabama to see them play, and we go to the Bear Bryant Museum, and they have a guy signing autographs every home game, and Ray Perkins is the guy. Now, Giant fans, because Angela is a Giant fan, her dad's a Giants fan. She's like, I'm like, it's freaking Ray Perkins. He's a Bama legend. So we got an autograph and we got a picture with him. And then we let her dad know that we did it. And he said, did you kick him in the ass for me? Because Giant fans do not like Ray Perkins.
Just get it right there. Hit him right in the balls, right?
Yeah, we didn't do that. But he's a Bama legend. She's like, I'm not. I'm like, we're going to get a picture with Ray Perkins. He's another nice guy. I'm surprised. Well, I mean, Dan Reeves would have to be, as far as the guy that had success one place and then just not so much with the Giants, right?
Well, it's because he was doing the Dirty Bird down in Atlanta.
He was with the Falcons and he went, yeah, that's true. He did go to a Super Bowl because of the Vikings. Yeah, that's right. They went they were 14-2 that year. Yep.
Eugene Robinson stayed out all night, right?
Yeah. That's right. He did. And then they freaking went after him in that Super Bowl, the first couple of plays, and he was still waking up. Yep. So Marty Schottenheimer had no clue that he was. So this is another nugget that I didn't do the first time. He's in 2001 when he was the Redskins head coach. It's the first time in NFL history that you would win 5 games in a row after starting the season 0-5. They fired him at the end of the season because they missed the playoffs and hired Steve Spurrier instead. Spurrier 12-20 in 2 years, and then Schottenheimer went to San Diego.
But Doug, that's the old ball coach.
He's the old ball coach. He was a disaster in the NFL, a disaster. I don't think he's right. Like he's a little off, and I just can't imagine that people had to be like, what the fuck is he talking about half the time?
Yeah. He wasn't right. But he had the visor. He'd throw the visor. Off and do that whole shtick.
Is there anybody that we haven't talked about that jumps out to you that you can think of? Because I'm going through a lot of names here.
Well, one that jumps out to me, not a current pro coach, but I love the story because we were at the game, and it's Lane Kiffin. Yeah. After they lost, USC lost to Arizona State, and the plane lands back in California, and Pat Hayden is the AD, meets him on the tarmac, fired. Get in the car and go home. You can't even get on the team bus to go back to campus. Just go home.
That is the ultimate kick in the balls. Like, if you think about it, if Lane walked off the plane and about step 3 or 4, somebody came up and punched him right in the nuts, that wouldn't have been as bad as firing him on the tarmac. Like, it's that bad. It's that bad that, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You're not even allowed on the bus. You're done. That's awful.
Couldn't you wait till Sunday, like the next day or Monday? God almighty, they just punched him in the nuts right there in front of everybody.
There had to have been some animosity there. With
Lane Kiffin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah. He ain't right either, by the way.
No. And when we roll around through the summer and we start talking about the next season, I got a theory about, well, I'll tell you now, I think Arch Manning goes there. I think he goes to Ole Miss. I think that, but that's for another time. What I wanted to talk about Petrino and Urban Meyer should get together and tell co-ed stories, because those two guys, him riding a motorcycle and Urban grinding on that girl are going to go down as classic moments in their, like, I don't know. It's like Joe Namath, like kids today and millennials, they have no clue what Joe Namath did. They just know he's the drunk guy that wanted to kiss Susie Colbert. These two clowns, Urban, he's a guy grinding on that girl. That's what's going to happen.
Good one. Yes. That is a good one, by the way. Joe Willie trying to kiss Susie Colbert. Yes.
Hey, so I got a minute. I'm telling you what I do. So it's so bad. The NFL, I can't watch an entire game. I can only watch Red Zone. And so last night is the Chargers and Chiefs. Instead of watching that game, I'm watching old footage from the 50s, like old NFL films, shows on the fabulous 50s, sensational 60s. Anybody of whatever, what are the ages now? They're called millennials and Gen X. Is that the ones that are the kids? Gen Z. If anybody comes up to me and tells me about how tough these players are today, I'm going to punch them right in the face. These freaking guys, I mean, there isn't nobody. Ain't nobody. Again, a guy strains a calf. He's out for 4 weeks. These guys were, I mean, of course, they got shots of Nitschke running on one leg, but I don't want to tell the Ray Nitschke daughter story. That's for another time.
That's where I was going.
Because I got, you want me to sneak that in? I'm going to sneak it in. We got about 4 minutes here. All right. So Mike and I go to Green Bay, and we're gonna tailgate and hang with his friend Matt Joe. And we'll go to dinner with him the 2 nights before the game. And Matt Joe tells us, by the way, his name is Matt and Joe. Like, some people call him Joe, some people call him Matt. So we just called him Matt Joe. That was easier. So he tells us, he's like, hey, Doug, he goes, by the way, on Sunday when we tailgate, Ray Nitschke's daughter is one of the people that I'm friends with, going to tailgate with us. So I'm like, oh, all right, this is pretty cool. He goes, well, she's... I'm like, oh, well, like, what do you mean? Like, what she's, like, he goes, well, I don't even know what he said to me, but he's like, she's what
personality.
She's got a good personality. All right. So I'm like, oh, all right. So Mike and I are like, how bad can it be? Right. How bad can it be? So I remember we're pretty tuned up. We're easily well tuned up in that day. And I remember seeing her coming, and it's like Kevin's reaction when he sees Buzz's picture of Buzz's girlfriend when he knocks his shelf over. It was like, woof. It was a little rough. She was nice, right? But she looked like him, younger, shorter as a woman. That's what that was like.
Yeah, with all of her teeth.
With all of her teeth, right. She was nice, though. I got some stories out of her, but whoo. Yeah.
Really nice. That was epic, by the way. So we'll have to dive into that. Maybe next time we'll spend some time on a couple of stories. But that's where we became educated on the piss bucket.
Yes.
And we met Will Ferrell.
Did meet Will Ferrell. I got pictures with Will Ferrell. Yeah. That guy really, I mean, that was accurate. And then there was the piss bucket, because let's hybrid the piss bucket and the piss jug story that I got together so we can talk about the piss bucket. Because again, it was Matt Joe's creation of how awesome his piss bucket was. Because when you tailgate at Green Bay, that's also where for the first time I ever saw, so he's all worried about going to the bathroom. So there was a porta-john right by where we were staying. And I remember, I'll never forget this, a guy goes into the porta-john, not one of us, another guy, takes a piss, comes out, and gets right back in line. Got right back in line, and he looks at me, he goes, whatever. And that's it. He's going to get right back in line, because by the time the line goes up, he's got to go again.
Yes. And I know we're almost out of time, but it's also the scene of the famous story where a Green Bay local, asked Doug for help opening a jar of pickles. And so Doug opens the jar of pickles, and in a great show of appreciation, he wanted to give Doug a PBR, a tall boy PBR. And you turned it down. And he was hurt. He was hurt by that.
He was insulted. And then I came back to our tailgate because I'm like, I'm not drinking that shit. Did not know that PBR is the official beer of the Packers. And when I told Matt Joe that, he was pissed. He's like, you go back and you go over to him and you say, hey, I'll take that. I wasn't ready for one. Cause he's like, you insulted him. Cause that was like, so that was, I accepted it. And then we were good buddies. Then I played cornhole with the guy, which doesn't sound right, but it was the game. I didn't play that cornhole with him. And that was the first time I played cornhole with him. And we were buddies after that. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Correct.
I learned you do not turn down a PBR after you open up a jar of pickles.
Never, not in Green Bay. And that was the time we were actually invited to play cornhole. We didn't just come up and invite ourselves and drink.
Also, another time in UCLA. I got to make a list. All right, we're running out of time. And I did record it this time. So that was good. All right. So we got a couple of topics for the next one. I want to tell that story of the piss jugs, the piss bucket, piss jug, the Sears catalog stuff. And also I want to revisit burning a chair because that was epic. So again, story time next time, no stats or numbers. And unless the college coach gets fired that was grinding on a college co-ed, we're probably going to stay off of topics. Or we might talk about the NFL weekend, but we'll see.
And hopefully next time we record it.
Yeah, I'm going to remember to record it. So this was a dry run. This one, I think it might have been better. I don't know. Who the hell knows? All right. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening for this edition of Stay Out of the Kitchen. We'll see you next time.